If you ate 5 eggs a day for 30 days, your body would go through a series of biochemical adjustments that reveal how food quality and nutrient balance interact with human physiology. The egg is one of nature's most concentrated nutritional packages. To understand what happens when you consume it daily, we must look at both the composition of the egg and the context of the human metabolism that receives it. When most people think of eggs, they imagine a simple breakfast food. Yet, inside each shell lies an architecture of proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and signaling molecules that have evolved to sustain the growth of a new life. When you eat 5 eggs a day, you are taking in a highly efficient combination of biological materials designed for repair and construction. Your body does not simply burn these molecules for energy. It reuses them to maintain membranes, rebuild tissue, and produce neurotransmitters and hormones. However, not all eggs are created equal. The conditions in which hens are raised directly influence the nutritional profile of the eggs they lay. Eggs from industrial caged systems tend to come from hens that live indoors, without sunlight or space to move. These eggs are pale, lower in essential fatty acids, and often have diminished flavor and nutrient density. Cage-free systems remove the bars but not necessarily the confinement. Free range sounds ideal, but it only guarantees theoretical access to the outdoors. In many cases, thousands of birds crowd near a small opening that few ever use. The most reliable nutritional and ethical standard comes from pasture-raised and certified humane farms, where hens actually roam outside, forage for insects, and synthesize vitamin D from sunlight. When hens eat natural food and move freely, the eggs they produce contain more omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, vitamin A, and other fat-soluble compounds. Quality also determines color. A deep orange yolk reflects the presence of carotenoids and fat-soluble vitamins. Unfortunately, some industrial producers have learned to manipulate yolk color by adding pigments to the feed, which means color alone can no longer serve as a guarantee of nutrition. For a genuine nutrient-dense egg, the living conditions of the hen remain the only reliable indicator. Now consider the nutrients themselves. 5 eggs provide roughly the caloric equivalent of a small meal, yet they contain an extraordinary density of essential compounds. Within this modest energy value are the amino acids that make up about 30 grams of protein, the fatty acids that form cell membranes, and nearly every B vitamin, along with vitamin D, E, A, and trace minerals, such as selenium, iodine, and zinc. The star nutrient in eggs is choline, a building block of phospholipids that structure every cell membrane and a precursor for acetylcholine, one of the brain's main neurotransmitters. The average person rarely consumes enough choline, and deficiency can quietly contribute to fatty liver and poor cognitive performance. Eating multiple eggs daily easily covers this gap. Another key advantage of eggs is their exceptional protein quality. When you eat protein, not all of it becomes muscle or tissue. Much is converted to energy. The proportion that becomes structure depends on how well the amino acid profile matches human needs. Plant proteins like soy supply only a partial pattern of amino acids and yield a low conversion rate into usable tissue. Even refined animal proteins such as whey isolate lose efficiency once separated from their natural matrix. Whole eggs, on the other hand, provide one of the closest amino acid ratios to human tissue known in nature. About half of the protein in a whole egg becomes structural material for cells, enzymes, and hormones. The other half may be used for energy. In contrast, the pure egg white, often favored by bodybuilders, has only a fraction of that efficiency because it lacks the cofactors found in the yolk that allow full utilization. This distinction matters metabolically. When protein cannot be used as a building block, the body converts it into glucose. That means isolated protein sources can raise blood sugar and trigger an insulin response, even in the absence of carbohydrates. Whole eggs avoid much of that problem because more of their amino acids are used for tissue building rather than fuel. For people trying to stabilize blood sugar or reverse insulin resistance, this is an important advantage. The most controversial aspect of eating eggs in large quantities is cholesterol. Each yolk contains roughly 200 milligrams, and consuming 5 brings that to nearly 1,000 per day. Traditional dietary guidelines long warned against exceeding 300 milligrams daily, suggesting that higher intake could raise blood cholesterol and promote heart disease. Yet this recommendation was based on limited early research and a misunderstanding of how cholesterol homeostasis works. The human liver produces its own cholesterol, often between 1 and 3 grams per day, and dynamically adjusts this output depending on how much dietary cholesterol arrives from food. When intake rises, internal production usually drops. When intake falls, production rises. Only when the liver is severely damaged or inhibited by drugs like statins does this balance break down. Cholesterol itself is not an enemy molecule. It forms the backbone of steroid hormones, vitamin D, and bile acids, and it stabilizes every cell membrane in the body. The brain, in particular, relies heavily on cholesterol to maintain the myelin sheath that insulates neurons. When cholesterol levels fall too low, nerve transmission becomes unstable, and hormone synthesis suffers. Thus, dietary cholesterol from eggs does not automatically translate to arterial plaque. In healthy individuals, it contributes to a balanced pool that the body regulates tightly. The concern about saturated fat follows a similar historical path. Eggs contain a modest amount of saturated fat, and for decades this was assumed to directly raise LDL cholesterol and heart disease risk. More recent evidence shows that while some people do experience a slight rise in LDL after increasing saturated fat, half of all individuals show the opposite. Moreover, the structure of LDL particles changes when diet quality improves. They become larger and less likely to penetrate arterial walls. Meanwhile, HDL, the lipoprotein that clears cholesterol from tissues, tends to rise. When carbohydrate intake falls and metabolic markers like fasting glucose and triglycerides improve, total cholesterol numbers become less predictive of disease. Beyond heart health, eggs have profound effects on the brain. A pasture-raised egg contains both DHA and EPA, the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids essential for neurological function. While fish oil supplements emphasize EPA for inflammation control, the brain actually favors DHA, which supports synaptic signaling, mood stability, and resilience against stress. 5 eggs can provide enough DHA to meet the daily requirement for most people. In addition, the choline in eggs boosts acetylcholine synthesis, which underlies attention, learning, and the ability to form new neural connections. Adequate choline also enhances REM sleep, the phase linked to memory consolidation and emotional balance. In this way, a diet rich in quality eggs can improve mood, focus, and sleep without the side effects of pharmacological stimulants or antidepressants. There is even a genetic angle that strengthens the case for eggs. A large portion of the population carries a variation in a gene called MTHFR, which limits the conversion of homocysteine into methionine. Homocysteine is a normal byproduct of metabolism, but becomes toxic when it accumulates, increasing the risk of cardiovascular disease, miscarriages, and inflammation. The fix is simple. Provide sufficient methyl donors and B vitamins, particularly B6, B9, and B12, which allow the conversion process to complete. Eggs naturally supply these nutrients, along with choline, which itself functions as a methyl donor. Regular egg consumption can therefore lower homocysteine levels and protect against some of the silent risks associated with this common genetic variant. One practical consideration is how the eggs are cooked. The nutrients in an egg are delicate, especially the essential fatty acids and certain vitamins. High heat oxidizes these fats and diminishes the bioavailability of fat-soluble nutrients. For the most benefit, eggs should be prepared gently, soft-boiled, poached, or scrambled slowly over low heat with a small amount of butter. The yolk should remain glossy rather than rubbery. Overcooked eggs not only taste inferior, but lose part of their nutritional advantage. Industrial buffet-style scrambled eggs, often cooked at high temperatures until dry, are a clear example of what to avoid. Those who practice intermittent fasting can use eggs as their first meal after the fasting window ends. The combination of protein, fat, and micronutrients provides a stable return of energy without a sharp glucose spike. 2 or 3 pasture-raised eggs with vegetables or avocado can serve as a complete meal, while 5 eggs can sustain most adults from midday to dinner. There are, of course, exceptions. A small percentage of individuals have egg allergies or sensitivities, often linked to early exposure through vaccines produced on egg substrates. For these people, even trace amounts can trigger an immune reaction. Others with severe hyperlipidemia or liver disease should consult a physician before consuming large quantities daily. But for the majority of healthy adults, 5 eggs per day does not threaten cardiovascular health and may, in fact, improve overall metabolic balance. After 30 days of such a diet, the average person might notice several changes. Appetite becomes more stable due to the satiety provided by protein and fat. Energy levels even out because blood sugar fluctuations decrease. Cognitive focus and mood often improve, partly through the combined effects of choline and DHA. Some people report healthier skin and hair, both of which rely on amino acids and fat-soluble vitamins found in abundance in eggs. Laboratory tests may show a mild increase in total cholesterol, but often accompanied by a rise in HDL and a reduction in triglycerides, patterns consistent with lower, not higher, cardiovascular risk. What emerges from this experiment is not a prescription to eat nothing but eggs, but a lesson in how food synergy works. A whole egg represents a complete biological system. Its nutrients complement one another, allowing the body to use them efficiently. When eaten as part of a balanced diet emphasizing unprocessed foods, vegetables, and adequate fiber, eggs can serve as a cornerstone of nutritional resilience. The key is always quality and context. So what would happen if you ate 5 eggs a day for 30 days? For most healthy individuals, the result would be improved nutrient status, enhanced brain function, and better appetite regulation. The fears surrounding cholesterol would likely prove unfounded, provided the rest of the diet supports metabolic health. The transformation would be less about dramatic visible change and more about subtle recalibration, cells rebuilding faster, nerves firing more smoothly, and the internal chemistry of life working with a little more precision. Food, at its best, is information for the body. When that information is coherent and complete, as it is in the form of a high-quality egg, the body listens and responds with balance. Eating 5 eggs a day is not a magic bullet, but for a month it can remind you how deeply biology rewards nourishment over numbers, and how nature's simplest designs often hold the most sophisticated wisdom.